Okay, listen, pay attention. When I was in the West Africa, when I was in Nigeria, in the North, schooling in secondary school, one day our teacher, a Malam, came to the class and wrote and said, today we are considering a topic called the pre-colonial days of Nigeria. And he went to the board and wrote the pre-colonial days of the Igbos, the pre-colonial days of the Yorubas, and then he proceeded to write the pre-colonial days of the Hausas and Fulani. I said, excuse me, sir. He said, what is it? And he frowned his face because the class was used to me always asking questions. And I believe as a child, if I had them saying that curiosity kills the cat, curiosity will keep me alive. I said, excuse me, sir. I said, what is it? I said, Malam. He said, what is it, son? I said, sir, you wrote the pre-colonial days of the Igbos, the pre-colonial days of the Yorubas. Why then do you write the pre-colonial days of the Hausas and Fulani? Why can't you teach us the Hausa man independently and then teach us the Fulani man independently? The Malam was shocked and he looked at me as if he has finally seen the definition of madness. But he was startled and puzzled to see such a question coming from a little boy. And then he says, son, what you asked is the deep question. But sorry, I cannot answer it because the textbook I'm using to teach you is government recommended. And there's nothing like that in this textbook. Pardon that. You see, do you know why it is difficult to teach whom an Hausa man was before Lord Lugard? Do you know why? Listen. The Igbo man was colonized by the British, right? The pre-colonial days. The Yoruba man was colonized by the British, right? The pre-colonial days. The Fulani man was colonized by the British, the pre-colonial days. But the Hausa man, before the British came, had already been colonized by the Fulani jihadists. Because before Lord Lugard came, Uthman Danfodio was already there. As early as 1805, the Hausa kingdom of Kebbi had already been captured. So the Fulani were colonizing the Hausa people before the British government came with a superpower colonization. That is to say, the British government colonized the Fulani who was colonizing the Hausa. So in that process, while the Igbos were colonized once, the Yorubas were colonized once, the Fulani was colonized once, the Hausa man was colonized twice. First by the Fulani, second by the British. So what the British did was to colonize a junior colonizer that was colonizing someone that was lower in power. That is why it is difficult for the Hausa child to be able to tell you whom he was before Lord Lugard came. Because before Lord Lugard came, Uthman Danfodio had already conquered the Hausa kingdom. That is why the Hausa child is more likely to appreciate Uthman Danfodio than he will appreciate Queen Amina of Zaza, a great queen who ruled in the mid-16th century and died in 1610. That is why it is difficult for an Hausa child to tell you whom he was before then. You know, when you ask people, what is the name of an Hausa king? They will tell you it is Emir. Forgetting it is Sariki. Because the Fulani is being projected. The Fulani hegemony conquered them to be ahead of them. So there is need for us to teach the Hausa child who he was before the jihadists. You know, when we talk about Hausa being conquered, you know, before the Fulani came, it was called Habe. Before Habe was conquered, there is something that we fail to understand. These people were existing before the Fulani came. And they did not fold their arms and was eating tuwo shikafa when the Fulani was conquering them. They fought. The kingdom, Hausa kingdom of Kebbi, was conquered in 1805. Okay. Other kingdoms in the Hausa kingdom was fighting back because the kingdom of Katsina was conquered in 1807. Immediately the kingdom of Katsina was conquered in 1807. Magajin Halidu committed suicide. He was the Hausa king in Katsina. He committed suicide. Magajin Halidu, he committed suicide. There is need for us to teach the Hausa child whom he actually was before jihad, so that he can know his heritage, so he can know his pride. We must teach them. If not, their own ignorance can affect the rest of the country. We must empower them with knowledge of whom they are, how unique they were, what they were called, the food they ate, The names they bear, because most of the names you take to be an Hausa name are actually Islamic names. Yes, they are actually Islamic names. But the people are not aware of that. Before the Emirate, the Caliphate, the Sokoto Caliphate, the Wandu Caliphate, what was there? What was there? Teach the Hausa child. Teach them the legend. Teach them the legend of Bagagia. Teach them when they were. Teach them about Phenomena of Zaza. Teach them about Magadin Haliru. Teach them these people. Because before you had what was called the Waziri, the Galadima, the Madawaki, the striking reward, the striking power. These people were people that were instituted by Uthman Danfodio as a centralized government when the Hausa kingdom was conquered. That was not the structure before jihad. That was the structure after jihad, introduced by Uthman Danfodio. And that is why indirect rule was easy to be implemented when Lord Lugard came. So as much as we are teaching the Yoruba child about their laughing, about the Bashaloon, about the Oba, about the opening of eternity, about the Yemisi, as much as the Igbo child is aware of Okmara, aware of all title holder, also title holders, Ezemo, Umuada, the 8th grade, as long as they are aware about women riots, as long as they are aware of the Igbo landing in 1803, there is need to tell them, to tell the Hausa people whom they were, because their lack of knowledge of themselves can affect the entire country. Listen, the Fulanese are beautiful people. The Hausas are beautiful people. The Igbos are beautiful people. The Yorubas are beautiful people. What I'm saying is, people should be empowered with the knowledge of themselves. It is not wrong for a man to be taught whom he was. Because as long as I'm concerned, the Hausa child is lacking knowledge of who he was, because it's not taught in school. The Hausa child is not being taught who he was in school, because the pre-colonial days of the Fulanese and the Hausas, the Hausa culture is not being reflected in that topic. It is the Fulani culture that is being reflected in the pre-colonial days of the Hausas and Fulani, because what the British met was a jihadist administration and not an Hausa administration. That is what I want you to understand, that the Fulani hegemony had already came before the Lugard came, and that's why indirect rule flourished. And we must make it pontificating as clear as crystal that the Hausa's kingdom fought back but was defeated, so that the people will know that our people actually fought back. And for a man to fight back means that he or she does not accept what was fighting him. That is why they resisted but was conquered. If they can have the mindset that they were conquered, we know that we were people before these people came. There is need for that. And don't say it does not concern you. It concerns you. And that is why I give people free books to read, so that you will know what is going on. You know what is going on. This video is lengthy, but watch it. Watch it and learn. Because some of you complain my videos are lengthy. I teach you in 10 minutes what your lecturers in university might not teach you in 2 hours. Africa. Wisdom is the principal thing. Of course, you know you can always request for boosts from me. All right. I want to use this opportunity to say maximum respect and maximum salama to everyone who made it possible for me to be back on social media after all the saga that happened. Thank you so much. We are back stronger, and we are back giving information. If you need a book on how to know whom you were as an Hausa child, as an Igbo child, as a Yoruba child, as a Fulani child, make sure you comment. Wisdom is the principal thing. Follow me on Facebook, Modern Day Town Crier. Follow me on YouTube, Modern Day Town Crier. Instagram, Modern Day Town Crier. Twitter, the same thing. Make sure you follow me, okay? I love you and I care about you. Wisdom Africa, is the principal thing.